Greetings and salutations, how's everybody doing? Happy holidays, you know, it's all over and all that. But, since I got Monopoly for Christmas, let's look back to editions of Monopoly that are cool, that you probably don't know much about.
How did I make it big? I know how! To play the game, I buy real estate, hotels, fancy cars, even railroads, and I take chances. To make it big, you've got to play the game! I'm Monopoly Game.
Let's start off with a version based around national parks that came out in 1998, which is Monopoly National Parks. Pretty straightforward, which is a version of which has a great concept in a way that gets players, like, you know, in my opinion, interested in checking out, like, you know, many of our, you know, national parks, whether it's Yellowstone, Old Faithful, or even Niagara Falls. Or even, like, say, the Grand Canyon. I think even the game port for this one is pretty cool. It's nothing, you know, it's nothing like, say, over the top or anything like that. But it gets its job done. It's like saying, hey, this is our concept. You can either have it or not. Let's go ahead and look at our next one, which is the South Park Edition. Well, I'm sure this would have, you know, existed eventually, in that the board is fairly colorful. The game pieces are actually characters from the show.
Yeah, as soon as we're done with the Psyker phase, I have 5 Psyker units.
Oh my god, this is so embarrassing. Hey, freeze! You right there! That's Alonzo Finitsky, the Romanian sex trafficker! You big man!
So that's pretty cool. Or at least I think so. The game came out in 2012 and would get a release in 2021 with this callback.
Okay, it's a bad thing to do drugs, so don't be bad by doing drugs, okay?
That's the title. Well, not the whole, you know, like, all that, but yeah, you get the idea. Here and Now is Monopoly came out in 2006, and the idea for this one is kind of cool in that you start off with more money and you can buy landmarks that are part of America. This game is kind of out of stock unless you can find a copy on eBay. As a side note, I wonder if one could purchase Trump Tower in the game, or was it just landmarks? Which makes me think, because the commercials and all that made me think that, the game board and all that, I mean, it's fairly intriguing. It's nothing that I'm going to write home about, unlike, say, like, Star Wars Episode 1, Monopoly. That's still one that I have, you know, had a lot of, you know, experience with, or maybe even Disneyland Monopoly. So, speaking of Star Wars, let's move on to Star Wars Limited Collector's Edition, which came out in 1997, which was before the prequel films. So, spots on the board are based around the original films. Which sounds like a lot of fun when it comes to this game, having players, you know, declare bankruptcy if they land on the planet Hoth, or maybe players land on Yoda's home in Dagobah.
Needed to get out of this slimy mud hole.
Mud hole? Slimy? My home this is!
R2, let him have it. R2!
So, we're gonna move on to, like, you know, from talking about IPs to talking about, you know, cities. In this case, Monopoly Chicago Edition was released in 1995, and it reminds me of the classic in that the Game Boy fit. Is more toned down in that it's not as vibrant as other editions of the game, but it is a interesting idea. It reminds me that a version of like Hilton Head Monopoly, which is, you know, a game you can get, or maybe it's just Hilton Head Monopoly or something like that. But if you live where, I think the basic idea of like if you live where the game is based, it's a cool idea. But I'd say like if you don't really know it, like you say all these landmarks, I suppose like, you know, it's more interesting. But if you, at the same time, if you are living there, it's a cool idea too. But eventually it would wear off, I suppose. But if you're playing with others, it might be more fun because you need to say, hey, if you ever go down there, you can talk about this and all that. So let's head back into the world of IPs. Now let's look at our final edition of the game with Game of Thrones Collector's Edition. Which came out in 2015, where the show was still going on before the fans got upset by the ending, apparently. Which, and this is honestly a show I have not watched.
I'm getting into this castle one way or another.
I tried to watch a bit of, was it House of the Dragons? I haven't really, delved deep into the show, or in books. The game pieces from it do look cool, along with the board, which looks very detailed, and the art on it, like the landing spots are pretty cool. I feel like if I was, a fan of the show, maybe I would get a more, say, yes, Monopoly, Game of Thrones. Say if I was to get Monopoly Godzilla, that would pique my interest. That would be pretty cool to win the spotlight, I feel like. But what is your favorite version of Monopoly? Do you have a favorite one? Or do you just prefer the classic? See you next time.